2 nations are in your womb, and the older will serve the younger. Genesis 25 verse 23. Before he ever saw the light of day, Jacob was already wrestling. Jacob's story doesn't begin with peace, it begins with a fight. Even before birth, the Bible says he and his brother were pushing, twisting, fighting within their mother's womb, so violently that Rebekah cried out to God in despair. God answered her, 2 nations are in your womb, but the older will serve the younger. It was a prophecy of reversal, a divine subversion of tradition. In a world where the firstborn had the power, the younger would rise. And Jacob would spend his whole life trying to make that happen, by any means necessary. The boys couldn't have been more different. Esau, a rugged hunter, wild and impulsive, his father's pride. Jacob, quiet, calculating, dwelling in tents, his mother's favorite. From the very start, Jacob was grasping, even born holding his brother's heel. His name literally means heel grabber or deceiver. But deeper than deception, Jacob was always reaching for blessing, for love, for significance. He longed to be someone in the eyes of men and in the eyes of God. One day Esau returned from hunting, exhausted and starving. Jacob saw his chance. "Sell me your birthright," he said, offering a bowl of lentil stew. Esau, reckless and hungry, agreed. Just like that. The legal right of the firstborn, the double inheritance, the spiritual mantle, traded for one meal. Jacob had struck his first major blow. Not by strength, not by sword, but by calculation. But this was only the beginning. Years later, as Isaac lay blind and dying, Jacob would take the deception further. Rebekah devised the plan: cover Jacob's smooth arms with goatskin, dress him in Esau's clothes, prepare Esau's favorite meal, send him in to fool the father into giving him the blessing meant for his brother. It worked. Barely. Isaac, suspicious but confused, spoke the ancient words of inheritance over Jacob, thinking it was Esau. The blessing was stolen, but so was peace. When Esau returned and discovered what happened, he wept bitterly. "Is there no blessing left for me, father?" And in his rage, he vowed to kill Jacob. Jacob, now blessed, had to flee, not in victory, but in fear. The blessing he longed for cost him everything. His home, his brother, his peace. He would spend the next 20 years in exile, a fugitive carrying both a promise and a wound. Why would God allow blessing to come through lies? Why would he choose Jacob, a deceiver, a schemer? Because Jacob is us. We all wrestle, we all reach, we all try to control what only grace can give. And God, in his mercy, doesn't wait for us to be perfect. He meets us in the struggle. Jacob would learn that blessing isn't something you steal. It's something you receive when you finally stop running. But Jacob's story didn't end in exile. One night, in the middle of nowhere, God would meet him, not to condemn, but to wrestle and to bless. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Genesis 28:16. The sun blazes above, the ground burns beneath. Jacob walks alone. No camel, no servants, no plan, just fear and shame. He had gained the birthright. He had won the blessing. But he had lost his home, his brother, his safety. This is not a man in triumph. This is a man on the run, and he has no idea what's ahead. Jacob fled Beersheba on his way to Haran, the land of his uncle Laban. A journey of over 500 miles. But the real journey wasn't just across the wilderness, it was inward. Jacob was leaving behind everything he knew, his family, his comfort, his control. He was now in God's country, the unknown, the wild, the space where striving doesn't work and grace begins. At some point in his journey, Jacob stops for the night. No tent, no light, no protection, just a rock for a pillow. And here, in the middle of nowhere, nobody and nothing, something happens, something holy. That night, Jacob dreams, a ladder or staircase stretching from earth to heaven, angels moving up and down, ascending and descending, and above it all, the Lord standing, speaking. God declares, "I am the Lord, I will give you this land, I am with you, I will never leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Genesis 28:15. Wait, what? This is Jacob, the liar, the manipulator, the deceiver? And yet, God meets him, not to punish, not to rebuke, but to confirm the covenant. Jacob didn't deserve this vision. He hadn't prayed for it. He hadn't repented yet. But God came anyway, because this is the nature of grace. It meets us not when we're ready, but when we're running. The God of Abraham and Isaac now reveals himself to Jacob, not because Jacob earned it, but because God keeps his promises. Jacob wakes, trembling. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." He takes the stone he slept on and sets it upright, an altar, a reminder. He names the place Bethel, which means house of God. In a place of isolation and exile, God built a sanctuary. Jacob makes a vow, if God is with me, then the Lord will be my God. It's not a perfect vow, it's conditional. Jacob is still Jacob, but it's a beginning, and God honors beginnings. Jacob's whole life had been about control, grasping for the heel, stealing the blessing, running from consequences. But here in the wilderness, God introduces him to something new: dependence. Jacob didn't build the ladder. He didn't call down the angels. He didn't climb toward God. God came down to him. Because that's what grace always does. Jacob is still a long way from becoming Israel. He still has miles to walk, wounds to gain, and pride to be broken. But this night at Bethel is the first time he meets God personally. Not the God of his father, not the religion of his household, but his God. The journey ahead will not be easy, but Jacob will never again walk it alone. What is this you have done to me? Genesis 29:25. Jacob arrives in Haran, weary, dust-covered, soul-worn, and that's when he sees her, Rachel, beautiful, confident, tending her sheep. In that moment, his story changes, but he has no idea what this next season will demand from him. Jacob helps remove the stone from the well and waters Rachel's flock, a symbolic reversal from the desert night he just left. He's taken in by her beauty, her grace, and her presence. And soon after, he meets her father, Laban. If Jacob is clever, Laban is ruthless. What follows is not a honeymoon, but a crucible. Jacob, smitten with Rachel, offers to work 7 years in exchange for her hand in marriage. No bride price, no gifts, just labor. And Genesis tells us they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Genesis 29:20. It's the most romantic line in Jacob's story. But what comes next is the darkest twist. The day arrives. The ceremony is set, the feast is long, the wine flows. And that night in the dark of the bridal chamber, it isn't Rachel, it's Leah. Jacob has been tricked, just as he once tricked Isaac. "Why have you deceived me?" he cries to Laban the next morning. Sound familiar? Now he is the one grasping at what he thought he had, and finding it was a lie. Laban shrugs. It's not our custom to marry the younger before the older. He forces Jacob into a second deal. Finish Leah's bridal week, then marry Rachel, but work 7 more years. Jacob agrees. He wanted Rachel, but now he has 2 wives, 2 competing sisters, and one very complicated home. The rivalry between Rachel and Leah becomes fierce. Leah, though unloved, bears son after son: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Rachel, though loved, remains barren and offers Jacob her servant. Leah retaliates by giving her own servant. Back and forth, until Jacob has 12 sons and 1 daughter through 4 women. It's messy, painful, chaotic, but God is working through it all. From this broken household will come the 12 tribes of Israel. From deception will come a destiny. Jacob begins to change, not quickly, but slowly, painfully. He's learning what it feels like to be used, what it means to wait, what it costs to live by your own schemes. God is not absent in Haran. He is forming Jacob, not through blessing alone, but through burden. The fire that purifies often looks like betrayal. Even in the mess, God blesses Jacob. His flocks multiply, his wealth increases, but with every success, tension with Laban grows. Eventually, God tells Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." Genesis 31:3. It's time to go back. Back to Canaan, back to Esau, back to everything he once ran from. But before he meets his brother, he will have to meet God. Have you ever been hurt by the very thing you pursued? Jacob teaches us that sometimes God uses our own patterns to shape us. The pain we feel may be the tool God uses to purify us. Grace doesn't always come through comfort. Sometimes it comes through consequence. And still, God is faithful. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown. Genesis 32:10. Jacob is older now. Wiser, maybe? But as he packs up his family and herds to flee Laban, a storm brews inside him, one that no wealth or strategy can fix. He's returning to the land of promise. But to get there, he must go through Esau, the brother he betrayed, the man who once vowed to kill him. After years of mistreatment and manipulation, Jacob escapes his father-in-law Laban. It's not peaceful. They argue, they accuse, but in the end, they make a covenant, set a stone as witness, and go their separate ways. For the first time in decades, Jacob is free. But freedom comes with a cost, because facing your past is often more terrifying than being trapped in the present. As Jacob continues south toward Canaan, he sends messengers ahead to Esau. They return with terrifying news. Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men. 400. Jacob's heart stops. Is this revenge? Is Esau bringing an army? The fear he buried long ago comes flooding back. Jacob springs into action. He divides his people and possessions into 2 camps, hoping one might escape if the other is attacked. He prepares lavish gifts for Esau, herds and servants, hoping to soften his anger. He plans every move, every word, every option, but under it all he knows he can't control this anymore. Not Esau, not the outcome, not God. For the first time, Jacob prays like a broken man. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother. Genesis 32:10. It's not a strategic prayer. It's not a deal. It's desperation. Jacob, the planner, is out of plans. All he has left is grace. He sends the gifts toward Esau in waves. Each heard a message. Your servant Jacob is behind us. He's trying to buy peace. But peace won't come through cattle. It will come through something deeper. And Jacob can feel it. That night he sends his wives, children, and possessions across the Jabbok River and stays behind. Alone. In the dark. This is the night before the reckoning. Jacob doesn't know what will happen tomorrow. Will he die? Will Esau forgive him? Will God intervene? He doesn't know, but he senses something. This isn't just about Esau, it's about him. Something inside him must change. He can't run anymore. He can't scheme anymore. Tomorrow may be war. But tonight he will wrestle. Have you ever had to face something you ran from for years? Jacob reminds us, healing doesn't come until we stop running. Before God redeems a story, he often brings us face to face with the wound. Sometimes we can't move forward until we go back, and sometimes before reconciliation comes the wrestle. I will not let you go unless you bless me. Genesis 32:26. Jacob stands alone. The sounds of family fade behind the river. The desert is still, too still. His mind races. Tomorrow he meets Esau. But tonight, someone else is coming. Suddenly, a hand grabs him. No warning, no voice. A figure leaps from the shadows and tackles him. Jacob fights back. What begins as confusion turns into combat. Man against man. Sweat, sand, blood. Hour after hour, neither yields. There are no words, only struggle. But Jacob knows this is no ordinary man. As dawn begins to break, the stranger touches Jacob's hip and instantly dislocates it with a single finger. Now Jacob knows for sure, this is not human, this is divine. But instead of retreating, Jacob clings tighter. Let me go, for it is daybreak, the man says. I will not let you go unless you bless me, Jacob replies. This is not arrogance, this is desperation. Jacob is done running. He wants more than survival, he wants transformation. The man asks, what is your name? Not because he doesn't know, but because Jacob must say it. Jacob. Deceiver. Heel grabber. Schemer. He confesses who he has been, and in return, the man gives him a new name. Your name will no longer be Jacob but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. From this moment, Jacob becomes Israel, he who wrestles with God. It's not a name of triumph. It's a name of limp and blessing, of pain and new identity. Jacob doesn't win by overpowering. He wins by clinging, by not letting go, by surrendering and holding fast. This is what faith really looks like. As the sun rises, the man disappears. Jacob walks away, limping. He will never walk the same again. The strong, independent, manipulative Jacob is gone. In his place is Israel, weakened but whole, broken but blessed, marked by encounter. Jacob names the place Peniel, meaning face of God. I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. This night was not about Esau, it was about Jacob meeting God, not in visions, not in dreams, but in struggle. Because sometimes God doesn't come to comfort, he comes to wrestle. Jacob's transformation reveals a divine pattern. Isolation, he had to be alone. Confrontation, he had to wrestle. Confession, he had to own his name. Renaming, he received new identity. Wounding, he walked away limping. Blessing, he walked away changed. This is not just Jacob's story, it's our story too. Have you ever wrestled with God? Not in rebellion, but in the midnight hours of doubt, pain, or desperate faith? Jacob teaches us that God honors the wrestle. He meets us not in the places of strength, but in the struggle, the night, the limp. And when morning comes, we may walk away changed, but never alone again. To see your face is like seeing the face of God. Genesis 33:10. Jacob limps forward. The dawn after the wrestle, the sun rises, warm and blinding, and ahead of him, Esau is coming. 400 men, no promises, no assurance, but something has changed. Jacob is no longer just a man trying to escape the past. He's a man transformed by grace. Jacob lifts his eyes and sees Esau approaching. No armies behind him, no ambush, just the figure of a brother he hasn't seen in 20 years. And this time, Jacob doesn't run. He doesn't hide. He doesn't send bribes ahead. He walks toward the very thing he used to fear. Jacob arranges his family in order. The servants and their children first, then Leah and her children, then Rachel and Joseph. But Jacob doesn't stand at the back. He goes first. As he approaches Esau, he bows 7 times, a gesture of deep humility and repentance. He who once deceived his brother now lays down every trace of pride. He doesn't come to conquer. He comes to make peace. And then, something completely unexpected happens. Esau runs to meet Jacob, but not with weapons. He embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, kissed him, and they wept. Genesis. 2 brothers, one who schemed, one who swore revenge, now held together by tears. There is no record of judgment, no words of condemnation, just grace. For decades, Jacob lived in fear of this moment. But God had already gone before him, not just to change Jacob, but to change Esau. Reconciliation is not something Jacob could have orchestrated. It was a gift, just like the blessing, just like the limp. He had prayed for safety, but what he received was mercy. To see your face, God in the face of forgiveness. Jacob looks at Esau and says something astonishing. To see your face is like seeing the face of God. He's not exaggerating. The night before, Jacob wrestled with God and saw his face. Now, in the face of a brother who should have hated him, he sees that same grace. Because forgiveness, real, undeserved, face-to-face forgiveness, is a mirror of the divine. After the reunion, Esau offers to travel together, but Jacob politely declines. Their paths have diverged. They are not the same men they were. But now they part in peace, not in pain. Reconciliation doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means choosing to see the other through grace and let the past stay buried. Jacob eventually arrives at Shechem. He builds an altar and calls it El Elohe Israel, God, the God of Israel. It's the first time he uses his new name in worship. It's as if Jacob is finally saying, this is who I am now, and this is whose I am. He is no longer the deceiver. He is Israel, the man who wrestled, survived, and was changed. Have you ever feared facing someone you've hurt? Or someone who hurt you? Jacob's story reminds us, reconciliation begins when we stop controlling and start trusting God to work on both sides. Sometimes the face of grace appears not in visions, but in a brother's embrace. I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. Genesis 46:3. Time has passed. Jacob is older now, gray-bearded, slower, deeply marked by both blessing and loss. He's seen God face to face. He's been reconciled to his brother. He's built altars, fathered 12 sons, and walked with a limp for decades. But his journey is not over, because Jacob's legacy isn't just about where he's been. It's about where his children will go. Among Jacob's many sons, one stands out, Joseph, the firstborn of Rachel, the wife he truly loved. Joseph is Jacob's delight, a bright, favored son with dreams from God. But favoritism brings jealousy. His brothers, fueled by envy, sell Joseph into slavery. They bring back his blood-stained coat, and Jacob collapses in grief. Surely I will go down to the grave in mourning. Genesis 37 verse 35. The man who once tricked a father with goat skins is now broken by a bloody robe. For decades, Jacob believes Joseph is dead. The limp in his leg is matched by the limp in his heart. He watches his family fragment, bitterness, rivalry, dysfunction. He remembers God's promises, but they feel distant. And yet, even in sorrow, Jacob does not let go. He clings to the covenant. Then a famine strikes the land, and news comes from Egypt. There is grain there. Jacob sends his sons, all but Benjamin, to buy food. They return with strange stories. A mysterious Egyptian ruler questioned them, held Simeon hostage, demanded they bring back Benjamin. Jacob resists. He's lost Joseph. He won't lose another son. But hunger doesn't wait. At last he sends them. In Egypt, Joseph reveals the impossible truth. I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? He weeps. His brothers weep. And soon word reaches Jacob. Joseph is alive. He rules all Egypt. Jacob's heart nearly stops. But hope revives him. For the first time in years his soul breathes again. I will go and see him before I die. Jacob prepares to leave the land of promise. It feels like exile again. But this time God speaks. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. I will make you a great nation there, and I will bring you back again. Jacob, now known as Israel, departs with all his descendants. The man who once walked alone now travels with an entire people. As Jacob enters Egypt, Joseph rides out to meet him. And in one of the Bible's most tender moments, Joseph threw his arms around his father and wept for a long time. Genesis 46:29. Years of pain, undone in a single embrace. This is redemption, not just for Joseph but for Jacob. In Egypt, Jacob blesses Pharaoh, he blesses his sons, he adopts Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, as his own. And on his deathbed he speaks prophetic words over each of his 12 sons, words that will shape the destiny of the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob dies old, full of years, surrounded by his family. He requests to be buried not in Egypt, but in Canaan, the land of promise. And Joseph fulfills his vow. A royal procession carries Jacob's body back to the tomb of his fathers. The deceiver, the wrestler, the exile, now rests in peace. Jacob's story is not clean, it's not easy, it's filled with flaws, failures, and frailty. But it is also filled with faith, wrestling, grace, and glory. God didn't choose Jacob because he was strong. He chose him because God is faithful, even when we are not. What is the legacy you're leaving? Jacob reminds us, your story doesn't need to be perfect to be used by God. The limp becomes a sign of grace, the struggle becomes the soil of faith, and the journey, though long, ends in the arms of the Father. Because with God, even deceivers become patriarchs. Even wrestlers become worshipers. Even broken stories become blessings to the nations. Wrestling with God is not the end, it's where real faith begins. Thank you for following the journey of Jacob, a man just like us, and may your own story, no matter how twisted, weary, or wounded, be touched by the same God who never lets go.